Hello, and thank you for joining us for this festive version of Securing the Realm for the festive tech calendar in 2024. I'm going to keep the introduction brief because we've only got a short amount of time to go through quite a lot. So my name is Josh McDonald. I'm a security and AI SME at Avanade, and I've spent quite a lot of time looking at how we use generative AI models, beginning with the GPT 3.0 model from OpenAI back in late 2020, and looking at how we used this for things like original thought, and then going into responsible AI from there.
And I'm Chris Lloyd-Jones. I work here at Avanade. I'm a Microsoft MVP in AI, and I lead architecture and strategy for the Office of the CTO.
So as I said, we've got a fair bit to cut through today, but first we're going to give a bit of an introduction to what is Securing the Realm and introduce the concept of talking about generative AI projects and storytelling through fantasy and gaming. Looking at our quest for today and the problem statement for this talk. Looking at how we start with early rapid prototyping with this generative AI use case, before moving into looking at how we scale that out and actually start to explore using agentic solutions to the problem and what this brings to the table. So the background of this talk and how we got into creating Securing the Realm. So Securing the Realm was born out of an idea I initially had to essentially create an AI dungeon master for the popular game Dungeons and Dragons, and essentially any other kind of tabletop role-playing game that you might want to play. Now, as part of this, Chris helped bring this to life on the Azure OpenAI platform and kind of bring some more maturity to the project, essentially. And we presented it at Scottish Summit in October. And from this, the whole idea was born to create not just an open source generative AI project using a lot of different use cases and kind of the latest thinking around Gen AI as it developed, but also to essentially tell the story of generative AI projects, the lessons learned, the experimentation, the kind of specific use cases through that kind of fantasy / storytelling lens. And so the D&D project itself became a way of telling that, really. So today's quest begins with the adventurers, in this case, arriving at the gift factory with our guildmaster here, pacing around in frustration. He's trying to produce a series of magical items for his adventurers of the Adventurers Guild. So, the characters of our campaigns, if you've played D&D before, kind of may acquire different magical items throughout their journey and their adventures. These may be tailored to what the adventurer is trying to achieve. They could be kind of like build defining in terms of character development, storyline, and also what you're trying to kind of make your character achieve as part of that adventure. So being able to create these kind of tailored gifts and generate these magical items is quite a specific use case to Dungeons and Dragons, and part of the role of that dungeon master. And so our adventurers arrive, and the place is a shambles. The elves are overworked, they've run out of ideas, and they need some help scaling what they're trying to do. So this is where we start to look at generative AI, or GPT, as we've got here. So trying to take this problem and craft it into a system prompt for, in this case, ChatGPT, which we're going to use for a rapid prototyping exercise to help from the rules of D&D 5th edition, or also the same rule set that is available in the Open Gaming License, which is the kind of open source offering made by Wizards of the Coast, a Hasbro company. So this gives us the mechanics that the gifts need to operate within the Open Game License, different kind of conditions and spells and effects that can take place. We need it to use some creativity to actually come up with interesting gifts that are tailored to the character as well. So let's kind of have a look at what that looks like. So we're going to try out our first demo today. We're going to look at creating some gifts using the ChatGPT custom GPT feature. We've got a QR code in the presentation here, which will also be made available again at the end as well, alongside the overall repo for the Azure OpenAI services, and also the broader custom GPT demo for creating and running D&D campaigns. Okay, so as we can see here, we've got the custom GPT demo. We've got some presets which are kind of relevant to more generic prompts, but let's try something a bit more specific, given the idea is that we're creating for tailored gifts. So create me a gift for my level 12 rogue, a halfling who has been a little bit naughty this year. So they burgled a dragon. Here we go. So we're going to have an image generation from DALL-E created. This will be in conjunction with a title and a description of the gift with some attributes that are relevant to the mechanics and the game engine, and then also kind of an explanation of who it's appropriate for. In this case, it should be connected back to the person that we described in the prompt. So we can see here, got a pretty reasonable image generated here, based upon the system prompt and the kind of prompt related to the character itself. We've got 3 different attributes which make reference to the D&D or OGL mechanics, and description linking back to the recipient, which kind of provides a little bit of groundedness as well to things to actually validate, yes, it links back to your prompt. Not completely necessary, but it's particularly useful where we've been a bit more vague in the prompt, or kind of made a more generic type item or gift. Okay, so unpicking the demo we just saw actually went a bit better than what I was thinking / hoping for our prototype here. So from an alignment standpoint, we had a image generation from DALL-E. We had a item with a description, so the content creation. But then we had what I call anyway, that mechanics mastery. So understanding the mechanics of the OGL or 5th edition rule set, and actually pulling all these 3 things together to create a singular item. It did it pretty well, but if we were to look at something like an agentic model, which we're going to dive into shortly, you're going to get much more higher impact results from that point of view. What I'd say was actually the ChatGPT custom GPT functionality, and as of this week as well, the project features, kind of creating that custom workspace for specific projects, are actually pretty good for creating a kind of very quick and dirty and like not production ready, but productionable and usable generative AI use case. You can get something moving very quickly.
So you whisper your wishes into the scroll and it whispers answers back, but no one sees the magic happening inside, just the result. So it's an opaque process. You don't always know why it gave a certain answer. There's a level of context disconnect. The scroll only sees what you give it in a single prompt, in the system prompt or in the chat conversation. It doesn't remember the factory, the elves or the broken machines, and it can be overconfident. The scroll will sound confident even when it's guessing. So what I'm saying here is that ChatGPT is a black box, and to get to that level of refinement in terms of accuracy, groundedness, and evaluations, that's the level where you might want to start to build your own system.
And from our magical prompt in scroll, we go on to something even more magical. Suddenly, the Guildmaster pulls out an enchanted crystal and places it in the center of the workshop. With a flash of white and a swirl of snowflakes, tiny alpha players. Now, what we're going to look at is the use of agentic AI, and how we start from going beyond a custom GPT approach to a singular agent, and then looking at that multi-agent model. So using the allegory of an elf in Santa's or the Guildmaster's workshop here, let's explore what an agentic AI solution would look like. So the elf represents an AI agent. It is very task oriented, based upon looking at a very specific part of the problem, which in part is driven by the end user being able to give a clear, specific prompt and then instructing the agent to go ahead and investigate that further. And so it's quite simplistic. It's very similar to what we've seen already from a GPT approach, just about specific purpose agents towards targeted use cases.
So if you want to look at the architecture for a single agent interaction, you can find the source code for this on my GitHub, so that's CLJ from Scottish Summit. And because this one's already being produced, I won't be showing this particular demo. But in this instance, we have one backend server built with Node.js in this instance, but it could be any language. And that is able to then see what the user is saying. So the end user sends a message to the front end, which is sent to the backend server, which is sent to a GPT model in AI Foundry, which has the text, which will then choose to generate an image using DALL-E, assuming that it passes the Azure content safety features, and then it will generate the image and return the text and the image back. But you can see it's quite single-threaded. User sends something, a response is sent.
So unpacking that next iteration now, we have our single agent model. Essentially a very overworked and very, very busy elf who sometimes makes a bit of error in what they're trying to do and needs to be corrected by our guildmaster in this case, or the end user. So, being able to work on one task and being focused on a specific task at one time, being sent to go and do it and then come back, it may make an error, and then the end user must correct it, give a bit more guidance. The example I think of for this is a very smart intern. So, they've got some kind of knowledge and experience, as much as an AI in this case can have experience anyway. And you can give them a task. You have to be pretty specific and clear in your instructions, because they don't have the same worldview and knowledge as yourself. But then you can set them to task. They'll go and do something and do a pretty good job of it. But this is where your kind of worldview and experience and knowledge comes in, because you then need to go, this isn't quite what I was looking for. What I wanted was something a bit more linked back to this. And then off they go again. And hopefully this time they get it done. Of course, this keeps them very busy, and you don't want them to burn out, and you don't want to get too frustrated as an end user having to come back and forth, and having these same discussions again and again and again.
In a multi-agent system, you can have a whole team of elves, a coordinated group of elves, each with their own role. So this multi-agent system allows multiple different agents to collaborate to achieve a shared goal. Each elf or agent has its own task or specialization, but they can either coordinate directly or be orchestrated to produce a final result. And together they can handle complex workflows, including human in the loop if needed, that no single elf or agent could manage alone. In this particular scenario, multi-agent systems combining specialized agents where each one handles part of the process to work together, communicate and solve complex interconnected problems. Each elf can take a specific task. In this case, we have an overseer or an orchestrator, a designer generating images, quality control checking the images and prompts, a toy builder creating the image, and a GIF wrapper that uploads and distributes them. Work can happen in parallel, which can speed up the production. One elf can be the overall overseer, making sure that other tasks are completed, and elves are communicating and passing tasks to each other, which means there's a collaboration for efficiency. Now, in this particular demo or video, what you are seeing is the user kicks off the production line and starts the agentic conversation. The user says, check the first order, and from that point onwards, the factory line begins. So the first image is generated based upon a prompt. The agents collaborate directly. They're not speaking to the user, they're speaking to one another, and they're checking the image against the Christmas gift specifications. It appears to have passed the specification and the image is published. And this will continue in perpetuity or until success goals are met or the server is turned off.
So to round up, we started with our usable prototype, our rapid prototyping phase, looking at custom GPTs, in this case using ChatGPT, but other options are available. Being able to essentially use a system prompt to get things going very quickly, maybe point it at a few data sources like we did here, and away you go. Looking at the single agent model from there to having the Azure OpenAI services and Azure OpenAI framework with the different content safety APIs, being able to bring Azure AI speech and search and all these different things to it bit by bit, incrementally, with a single agent model using clear and specific instructions to take it forward. And then finally looking at multi-agent systems, aka the agentic systems that Microsoft have been talking about repeatedly during Ignite, and how we have an orchestration layer that takes the instruction from the end user and then puts it to task with a variety of different single agents who have more specific kind of focuses, and being able to go back to that orchestrator to compile it all together to solve the problem that the end user inputted to that orchestrator.
And just like a single elf can't save the factory on its own, a single AI agent can't solve every problem. They need to be bespoke and customized. If you customize your team of agents working together, we can build systems that are faster, smarter, and more efficient, ready to tackle the most complex challenges. And here you can see the Guild Masters Christmas workshop is now back up and running and able to distribute gifts for the holiday season.
So we're now at the end. So thank you for joining us on this journey and going through our storytelling of our AI projects and adventures. We've got the ChatGPT prototype above on the first QR code. In the second, we have the broader campaign creation and campaign running and ChatGPT AI Dungeon Master type GPT prototype we have there. But then also the demos that we've displayed in this session that Chris walked us through there will be available on our GitHub repos in a few days from now. And also what you'll find already is if you go onto that repo, you'll see the presentations and demos we gave at Scottish Summit, as well as at the Bletchley AI user group as well. Now, hope you have a great holiday and speak to you soon.